Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar today. Are you an entrepreneur trapped in a career employee's body? Our presenter is Nicole Nash-Arnold. Nicole is a nursing career coach who helps great nurses transform into respected leaders. She shares her 15 years of experience in both senior and executive health leadership roles to germinate great leadership. Clinically, Nicole has over 10 years perioperative experience before moving into her nurse educator and management roles. She has postgraduate qualifications in perioperative nursing and currently a master's in nursing. Nicole is a member of the International Coaches Federation. Nicole, welcome to the microphone.
Thanks very much, Sue. So today what we're going to talk about is the concept of entrepreneurialism and how it can be applied to our nursing careers. Really, entrepreneurialism is about taking an opportunity and exploiting it, either to our benefit or to our organisation's benefit. And in the last few years, there's been a concept that has developed about entrepreneurialism, where we take an idea and exploit it for our own business gain, or intrapreneurialism, where we exploit an idea for our organisation's gain. Either way, whether you're doing it for your own business or somebody else's business, the thought processes and the way in which our neural grooves are thinking is distinctly an entrepreneurialism thought process. And it's about exploiting an idea or an opportunity. And that's about, there's either, you think one way or another. You're either an entrepreneur and an ideas person, or you're a career employee and you're excellent at executing somebody else's idea. There's usually two types of people in the world. For us, in our world, there's not a lot of nurse entrepreneurs for whatever reason. Doctors in our world are exceptional at it. They're running very profitable and very healthy private practices in surgeons, in private emergency medicine, in the physicians, and pretty much every specialty that there is in medicine. There is a way to exploit that opportunity for a private practice in their own business. Allied health practitioners are great at it again. They either have the option of being career employees in the public or the private sector, or they set up their own private clinics. And you have optometrists having their own clinics, and you've got obviously physiotherapists, exercise physios, you've got stomal therapists, and an enormous body of allied health practitioners who are running their own clinics and practices, and they're using those entrepreneurial ways to exploit an opportunity. But in nursing, it is actually pretty rare. And it's more of a cultural thing than lack of opportunity. It's just something that we're not taught to necessarily think in the way that entrepreneurs think. And this is what this next hour is about, is exploring who an entrepreneur is as opposed to who a career employee is, and the traits of each of those categories. And it will be the traits in terms of the good, the bad and the ugly for each of those, the entrepreneur and the career employee. And it will help you discern about where you intuitively sit, where innately are you an entrepreneur who's actually trapped in a career employee's body, or are you very, very happy being a career employee? Because that's certainly a perfectly exceptional way of carrying out your career. The other thing is that this, even if you are a career employee, understanding how an entrepreneur thinks may give you the opportunity to leverage some great ideas and opportunities that you see in an entrepreneurial way, and see how you might be able to exploit an idea or concept for your organisation's benefit and start to think innovatively. And it's a great way of exploiting another avenue of your career, but within an organisation. So that's what we're going to cover today. Who is a career employee? Who is an entrepreneur? And what do you need to do if you actually are an entrepreneur and you want to exploit that? So first of all, we're going to explore who the entrepreneur is. So these are the characteristics of what an entrepreneur, and it pretty much is universal, whether you're an engineer or whether you're an accountant or whether you're a plumber or whether you're a tech guy sitting there and you've come up with the next Facebook or the next Pokemon Go. These characteristics are the same whether you're a nurse or anything else. Entrepreneurs enjoy seeing something new, and they really enjoy seeing and exploring whether it will succeed. They like the unknown. They thrive on being different. They spend a great deal of energy and time proving themselves because there's a lot of doubt and a lot of people going, that's stupid, who's going to play Pokemon Go? And they spend a lot of time going, I think lots of people. For entrepreneurs, few are truly successful in their entrepreneurial adventures. Some are able to build incredibly strong businesses and live an enormously wealthy life on the back of their idea. Another body are able to build a strong enough business to support themselves, but most entrepreneurs fail in this endeavour. And often entrepreneurs will try many a different iteration and many a different idea and many a different business plan, business strategy and concept before they actually do find a successful one that's either successful enough just to be self-sustaining or incredibly profitable. Recognisable traits of the entrepreneur are usually things like they're really fast-paced. They often work alone because other people can't really keep up with them because they can be a little bit sporadic in their thought process. They are creative, and they're creative in the sense of they're not too dissimilar to the artist in that very left of centre thinking sometimes. They're confident, and perhaps they have confidence when there's no reason to be confident. Universally, they are resourceful, and they have an incredible knack for solving problems, and they are always very persuasive. They can convince others to trust them. They can convince others to buy their ideas. They can therefore convince other people to buy their products and services. And at the other end, they can build trust so that people invest in their idea. For the entrepreneur, common problems is that their business is often in crisis, or they're in denial and they're paralysed by how overwhelmed they can be. They're successful, but often at a cost of too many working hours. They struggle more for that need to feel that judgment and the counter the judgment that they feel about that relates to their products, their people and their methods. They're always starting something new. The bright shiny object syndrome is profound with this particular group. They're frustrated and bored by the administration side of their business. Their relationship with their product or their service is often quite skewed. They either overvalue or they undervalue their product. They're motivated by things like dissatisfaction with the way things are currently done. Just because that's the way we've always done it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea to continue with it. And that dissatisfaction is the mother of their creation. They love new things, new ideas, new methods, products, services. Anything that's new is fascinating to them. They're incredibly motivated by their need for achievement and recognition, and they're often very motivated by that need to prove something, because so many people have said, no, just do what everybody else does and go to work and have a job, and they want to prove that there's an opportunity to do things quite differently to the way that other people have done them. That's in contrast to who the career employee is. The nature of the career employee is that you work for someone and you work to achieve their vision, their idea, their goal, and their big picture. Usually a career employee varies in their level of responsibility and authority, but irrespective of who you are and what job you do as a career employee, you are managed and supervised by someone else. Whether you're the cleaner or whether you're the CEO, you are still managed by the board, and the board is still managed by the shareholders. So it just goes around and goes around. Irrespective of whatever role you hold in an organisation as an employee, you are supervised and you are managed. Often career employees, there is a distinction between working hard and producing results. There are lots of people that can toil away unnecessarily and they're working hard and they're the little engine that could, but they're not actually delivering anything. Whereas there are a lot of employees that are producing results and that they're not necessarily working all that hard, but ultimately their performance and their remuneration isn't necessarily linked with each other. And it depends on the way in which you're employed, but where an entrepreneur is absolutely rewarded for the results that they produce, a career employee, quite conversely, might work hard, they might produce results, but irrespective, they're paid whatever it is that they get paid. Recognisable traits about the career employee are things like they are usually linear. That's not so relevant for nurses. Nursing career employee aren't necessarily linear. We're able to think very broadly and very promptly about what's going on in our setting with different patients and clients and demands that are going on. But for the general career employee, they're usually very linear thinkers. They start at the beginning of a project and they work towards completion. Very task orientated. That is something inherently recognisable about nursing as we move away from that thought process. Still, we are often quite task orientated. As career employees, the career employee is focused on doing things the right way. This is the way we do it. This is the protocol. This is the procedure. This is the policy. This is the standing operated procedure. Whereas in entrepreneurs turn that on its head and do things completely conversely to the way that it's historically been done. Again, compensation may not be linked to performance. Career employees are inherently implementers and they are doers. They're not necessarily the ideas people, but where the ideas people can't execute, the career employee does an excellent job at executing their vision and they're able to deliver what the entrepreneur and the ideas person necessarily cannot. Often they're a coordinator and they're always dependent and always reactive in their role. Common problems that the career employee experiences, and again this is universal, but for us in our nursing world, is that the organisation, or for us the hospital or healthcare delivery service, can often be reorganising and ever changing. And the career employee needs a strategy for always protecting their job and protecting their status quo and protecting the way in which we've always done things so that we can continue to deliver. And we've definitely seen that in nursing and how our role has changed. And we have given away certain responsibilities to allied health professionals that were inherently nursing roles. So we're ever protecting what we do and who we are and what we represent. The career employee recognises that their philosophy may no longer be a fit with an organisation, and that can be a significant problem for them because what they believe, and particularly for us in nursing world, what we believe is right for the patient and what we believe might be right in the way forward may not necessarily be aligned with what the hospital wants or in the direction that they're going. And certainly in organisations that are for profit, I hear that a lot when I talk to nurses that, you know, the career employee says, my hospital is always talking about money. I'm not interested in the money. I just want to deliver great patient care. And that grind between the values and the vision starts to have an impact on whether you want to be a part of that organisation and their vision any longer. Career employees are motivated by security. They want to know that they're going to get paid every fortnight on a Wednesday. And the entrepreneurial spirit doesn't have any of that security. They might get paid this month and not that month. But the career employee needs that security and know that they have a job and they've got a lot of constructs and industrial relations and human resources around them to support them and secure them in the world in which they want to live. They're motivated by the sense of achievement and they're motivated often by advancement. So for us, we need to work out if you actually have heard those two definitions of what an entrepreneur is and what a career employee is, and you're starting to hear some bells ringing for yourself to think, I'm an entrepreneur trapped in a career employee's body, then how you're going to exploit that needs to start taking shape in your head so that you can exploit it for your own gain. And that may be financial and it may be just simply job satisfaction. But irrespective, that realisation that you've got some of those traits, they're not going to go away, and you need to, for your own sanity and your own satisfaction, be able to use them for good instead of evil. So these are the ways in which you might be able to exploit those. And it's not necessarily starting a business tomorrow, but it's still ways that you can use those skills. And that's what I talked about from the very beginning of this, is that the entrepreneur is someone who takes a great idea and builds their own business to make it profitable, whereas sometimes there's simply the intrapreneur, that they still want the security and they still want the opportunity for advancement, but they do have some of those skill sets. So an intrapreneur will take a really great idea and make it profitable and successful for their organisation. And in fact, how to leverage that is something that I've spoken recently about in another webinar, about how you might use those thought processes for a career disruption, and how you might work through that from a step-by-step basis. But irrespective of whether you're looking to exploit an idea for your financial gain or for your organisations, the facts are that this is about finding a problem to solve. Any business that has been successful in any market that you look at is about solving a problem. They've solved a problem that people want to pay money to have solved, and they will pay it, and the business is successful. And that's how you're going to build your solution, and that's how you're going to build your innovation. So if you were thinking about, right, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur, what does that mean? Then you need to have a look at what problems you are solving, and like we talked about last time in career disruption, you need to have a look in your own healthcare backyard to see what opportunities may lie, because you already have a significant body of knowledge here. And you could go and open a Baskin and Robbins ice cream store, but that's not something that you know a lot about, but you do know a great deal about healthcare delivery. So if we take a snapshot of what's going on in our current healthcare today, then problems that we need to solve are things like this. We have a considerable growth in chronic disease. We have a considerable growth in our ageing population. The stability and decline in our community needing acute care services is rapidly declining, and that need is now moving across out of acute care into primary care and in community care and in home care. We have a declining workforce. There is a greater need on the training pipeline and arguably international recruitment than we've ever needed before. There is a changing models of funding, changing models of care so that we can do more for less. And geographically across our country, Australians have ever increasing challenges about accessing the care that they need, particularly in the rural and the remote, where they have the same healthcare needs as we have in metropolitan Sydney, but a smidgen of the resources that the same have in those sort of areas. Those problems are opportunities, and they're opportunities to exploit, and they're opportunities that people are exploiting already to leverage as their entrepreneurial ways entail, so that they can exploit that to make profit for themselves or for their organisation. And again, even in your own specialty, not necessarily broadly from the whole of Australia, you might see in your own specialty, in your own backyard, where there are problems that need to be solved. I'm from a traditional acute care background myself, and there are enormous unmet needs in the hospitals that I have worked in every single day. We continuously have problems with patient flow. We continuously have problems with ambulance ramping and access block. Our theatre wait times can be enormous. We have delayed discharge, which is even worsening our problems with access block and in turn ambulance ramping. Length of stay, with patients staying longer, is becoming problematic. We have patients which have far more complex needs now than they used to 20 or 30 years ago. Gone are the single disease diagnosis where someone comes in for their appendicectomy. Now they come with their appendicectomy at 99 years of age with every comorbidity under the sun, and have acute confusion, and now can't go home for 58 days, and they should have been in overnight. We've got blocks to community care, which is increasing our lengths of stay, and the ever-changing conversation about budget blowouts. All of these problems present an opportunity where we have expert knowledge and we have expert opportunities and we have expert networks where if we are finding that we have a synergy and those traits around the entrepreneur start to resonate with us, where there is fertile ground for us to exploit that. By way of example, I'll give you a case study of a nurse who's done just that. But first, there are lots of examples. There's a website that showcases exactly what nurses do in terms of opportunities that they have exploited. And there are some really, really great examples. And these are not necessarily all American, although the website that I refer to is American. Some of these examples are nurses that have exploited an idea that they've come across, found a niche need, and made a very profitable business. Some of them are multinational companies, and some of them just support their lifestyle no more than what nursing did, but they have control over their own world, and it's more synergy with who they are as a person. There's a website called Pocket Nurse that was started by a nurse, pocketnurse.com. And this particular nurse sells around $8,500 different products that are specifically designed for nurses. Watches, stethoscopes, scrubs, pencil belts, all sorts of things, shoes, theatre attire, whole range of things that are just perfect to solve nurses' problems that they experience every single day. AMRN.com disseminates forensic information and resources to those who work in the forensic field. Uniforms Proper is a scrub supplier that was started by a nurse. First Choice Agency here in Queensland was something that was started by a nurse, and it's simply providing agency nurses to acute hospitals and subacute healthcare delivery service. KarenBuxom.com is an internationally recognised expert and motivational speaker in the concept of therapeutic humour. She learned everything she needed to know from just being a nurse and a shift worker in a hospital. NurseKeith.com is a qualified nurse coach. He's a life coach that dedicated his life to nurses and how they can lead fulfilling lives despite our challenges of shift work, work-life balances, and warding off burnout. Healthcare Training Services is a provider in Australia that provides delivering certified advanced life support training to hospitals and individuals so that they can be recognised with ALS. fad.net.au is started by a local Brisbane nurse who saw a need for childcare centres and parents of young children who had no idea about how to resuscitate their child in the event that the worst case scenario happened. And she runs a business across the entire eastern seaboard of Australia where she teaches childcare centres and parents how to do CPR. There are stomal therapists out there that are running very successful businesses delivering care. ICU in the Home is a Melbourne nurse that started a long-term ICU ventilated patient care service so that those patients didn't have to be institutionalised anymore. There is an enormous body of home birth midwives that are in private practice. And then there's organisations like jeansangels.com that's providing support to adult children who are trying to navigate an incredibly complex healthcare system for their ageing parents. An amazingly niche area that specifically targets children that just are accountants and they're lawyers and they're cleaners and they're childcare workers, and they have no idea when their ageing parent gets sick what doctors to go to, what x-rays mean, why they need an MRI, how to get care for their parent. Never even thought about any of that. And she set up a business so that she could just help adult children navigate the healthcare system, not delivering care, just helping them understand it. Conversely, that brings me to Linda Delamotte. She did her nursing training here in Brisbane at the Royal Brisbane in the late 80s and worked as an RN in a variety of roles throughout Queensland and New South Wales for about 15 years. Just, in her words, a garden variety RN doing what we all do. After her kids were a bit older, she went back to tertiary education and her career diverted into the corporate world, oddly, and to her surprise, where she actually took on human resources and business management roles. After 2009, she graduated with an MBA and a year after that decided to combine her business and her nursing experience to create a business, and it's called Your Home Care. Your Home Care is a company that provides personalised support to children and adults with very complex disability and mental health needs to enable them to live quality of life. Your Home Care employs personal carers and right through up to registered nurses and provide continuity of care to clients as their needs change, as their healthcare needs change. After establishing that 5 years ago, Linda saw an incredible growth in her Your Home Care business, with service delivered through all of southeast Queensland. And she expands ever each year on year as that demand rises. Linda saw that there was a massive need for community care and home care because we were moving away from our needs in acute care. She saw that opportunity very early on, and she saw at the beginning the increasing chronic disease and ageing population and saw that as an opportunity. In 2015, these things aren't necessarily a surprise, but in 2009, it was definitely something that we would have all gone, really? Is that really going to be a thing? And she has seen enormous opportunity, and she has untold growth in that sector. It's a perfect example where that entrepreneurial spirit was constantly knocking on the door, and she saw an opportunity and she exploited that opportunity for her gain. But also she is delivering amazing client care in the community in the way that she wants it to be seen, and finds that incredibly fulfilling. She's a perfect example of someone who saw a problem as an opportunity. And it's probably one of the most notable characteristics about entrepreneurs, as opposed to career employees and professionals, is that they universally see challenges as opportunities. Entrepreneurs are early adopters and they easily adopt massive problems but intuitively see it as an opportunity. The career employee in the traditional nursing role tend to see their workload, for example, as a massive problem. And career employees are generally talking a lot about their workload, particularly in the clinical setting. But they rarely see that as an opportunity. They see it as a problem. Entrepreneurs deal with the exact same workload issues. Their workload, in fact, is enormous to the point where they're working to their detriment, long hours and often 7 days a week. But they often language it quite differently. They see their workload as, and they use terms like capacity constraint. They realise that if they're working 20 hours a day and they're generating revenue for that 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, then they've maxed out their capacity and they need to do something about that. So they start to think about how they might delegate and employ people in certain capacities so that they can free up their time so that they have more capacity to build the business. Whereas a career employee struggles through and pushes through and doesn't necessarily come up with the ideas about how to continue through and solve those problems. It's definitely career entrepreneurs have an intuitive sense of working smarter, not harder. And it's a quite distinct characteristic for them. The other thing about entrepreneurs is that they've generally learned the lesson that perfection is the enemy of progress. And it's something that's also quite unique to entrepreneurs. For entrepreneurs, while they're busy, if they were very, very committed to crossing every T and dotting every single I that they have so that they could perfect the ideal product or service that they want to get out, and sell so that they can leverage it to build a business, it means very likely that they're going to miss the market and someone else is going to have moved in and picked up all their market share. Entrepreneurs tend to go to market with what they call minimal viable product. It is the bare minimum, and sometimes it's not even functional. They might go to the Apple store to sell an app with something that is barely functional, but they want to put it out there with minimal expense and minimal time so that they can see if there's anyone going to buy this thing. And if they are, then we'll put what we need to put into it. And it's often, and in fact it's rarely, the best version of the product that it can be, but it delivers value. That's their measure of success. Does it deliver value? Does it make someone's life better than it is today? Is it everything it could be? No, but it does have some function and offers some value. Career employees, and in particular nurses, have an incredible commitment to best patient outcomes and the ideal patient care. And it's a black and white scenario. If it's not the best care that it can be, or their team is not the best care that it could be, then we have no business delivering it care. Of course, in our setting, we want to be delivering everything that we can, and it's incumbent upon us to do that. But nurses as career employees carry the weight of the world on their shoulders and feel like the best care is the only care. Entrepreneurs, however, get out there and they take a risk. And for many, it can be poorly planned and it can be poorly executed. And so there's often failures and iterations and moving on to something that's more successful. It may not be as good as it's going to be in 2 or 5 years, but they've still helped people and they've solved a problem. I imagine for Linda, when she started and the care that she was delivering to her clients in the community, the way in which that it is done now is not the way that it was done back there. And that the systems and processes are unbelievable compared to how she started. But she was still adding value and she was still delivering safe care. It just wasn't the best care as it can be compared to as today. But it met some bare basics and some minimums, that these patients were getting a better quality of life because she was a part of their journey. Nurses, of course, need to deliver safe care, and that's a non-negotiable. But realising that a thing moves and improves is something to be celebrated and not treated like a failure. Looking for where an example where people have delivered a solution that wasn't the best can be seen everywhere particularly in our acute care service. The way in which we deal with an appendicitis today is vastly different to how we dealt with it in 1942. And it's not necessarily that it was wrong then, it's just that things evolved. Back then it was a minimal viable product, and we've learned and we've grown. And if we didn't treat it back then because it wasn't everything that it was going to be, then a lot of people would have suffered for it. So entrepreneurs have an incredible ability to see that perfection is the enemy of progress. Similarly, they make mistakes, a lot of them, and they have a lot of very tough lessons to learn when you're on this entrepreneurial journey. And they've learned that mistakes are healthy. That's actually where the growth is. That's where your stretch zone is. Career employees treat and carry their mistakes like a personal failure. In industries such as software development, the experts in that field adopt a 7-step process where they start right through to where they finish. The start, 7 steps to where they finish. They recognise that there are 7 iterations of a product from beta to completed, from concept to perfected. We actually have the same model in our own nursing industry. If we take Patricia Benner's model and her work, where she identified and defined nurses, how we transition from novice to expert. And we might apply the same thinking, that there are 4 or 5 iterations, and inherently those iterations come with mistakes, where we transition from being a novice to an advanced beginner to an intermediate to an expert. On every single given nursing function that we perform, And of all of the time that I've spent with nurses through education or management or talking and coaching with nurses, they all tell me that with each stage that they progress to be the expert that they are today is peppered with their mistakes and not necessarily with their failures. It is a fundamentally entrepreneurial thought process that we do own our mistakes and see that's where our growth and learning happened. And entrepreneurialism is exactly the same. When you step out there and you take on this opportunity and you exploit it for your benefit, then where you learn and where you progress and where you iterate to make this amazing thing that you never thought of from in the beginning comes from the mistakes that we make. Carrying them as failure will be toxic. And entrepreneurial nurses rethink those mistakes and see them to get them closer to the perfect solution and the perfect service and the perfect product. One thing that, again, the nursing career employee and the entrepreneur have incredible similarity and synergy with is the concept of discipline. It takes enormous discipline and tenacity and determination to stay the course and start up a business. Nurses possess a level of discipline as a career employee that I believe I'm unlikely to ever see at the same level and execution in any other industry. The nurses that I know and have educated and have managed over 15, 20 years are truly committed and harder working than is probably good for their own health. Nurse entrepreneurs take that exact passion that they have and the discipline that they have, but they just take it that one step further in that they see that maybe the care that we're delivering isn't exactly the way I would do it if I had total control. And I want to see it and feel it and know it differently to how it is being done before. And that's their next iteration, is that I know what I'm doing. I know how to deliver great care. I'm committed to having exceptional patient outcomes. Now I want to do it for myself to know that I can do it better. And they take total control over the outcomes that they're able to deliver to patients in whatever form that might take, in an education business or a care delivery business or in the many iterations that they have for exploiting a business and exploiting an idea and solving a problem. If you own a home care agency like Linda does, then you're able to control everything that goes with that for the clients that you have. And for any nurse, that's appealing. Without any restriction of the bureaucracy and the funding and the politicking that we do see every day in our world, then you're able to apply that to your discipline, to your group of clients and patients that you have in your business. In your own little patch of the healthcare world, your cognitive processes are innately different, and therefore your actions around what problems that you have are also innately different, simply as a result of having complete control of how healthcare is delivered to your people. We already have the discipline around that. That's the nature of what we do as registered nurse every day. But entrepreneurial nurses take it that step further. Now they take that discipline so that they can take control and complete control of healthcare outcomes. They're the sorts of qualities and, I guess, innate sense of what a career employee is as opposed to an entrepreneur. But usually when people get to this phase of have this conversation about who they are, an entrepreneur or whether they're a career employee, the fear starts to kick in. Because they're actually starting to think, I might have some entrepreneurial streaks that are running through me, but the fear of what that means in terms of starting a new business is incredibly terrifying. So they start to think about things like, what do I need to know and what do I need to have that I don't have right now? And so one of the things that you have is there are some, if you're going to be a business owner and start up this thing, then there are some qualities above and beyond just being an entrepreneurial and creative spirit that you do need to have. And according to Forbes, which is a well-respected website that does a great job of business writing, is that they talk about 8 key qualities that you need to have in terms of the journey to entrepreneurialism. So one is resiliency. Are you able to cope with the roller coaster of the ups and downs that small business is? The second is focus. There is a sizable gap. It is a dip between this great idea that you have that keeps you up at night, you're so excited about it, and the thriving business at the other end. And simply maintaining the concentration through that dip is beyond what most human beings are capable of. It's tough, it's fraught with self-doubt, and it can be actually really, really tedious. What's more is that there are so many bright, shiny objects of promise and potential along the way that it can be really hard to stay on message and stay true to the vision that you had when you were lying awake one night with this idea of this home care agency in your neck of the woods. And then all of a sudden you start to think, maybe I should just do shopping for people at home and not do this nursing thing. And all of these clouds of self-doubt and other ideas and other opportunities come along the way, and it's incredibly distracting. The very nature of the entrepreneur is to be attracted to the new and the fun. So staying true to an original concept can be nigh on impossible for the entrepreneurial spirit. The third is investing in the long term. Again, the entrepreneurial spirit is a creative. It is an artist at heart and not innately about the unforeseeable. Overnight success can be a 2 to 7 year journey, and sometimes at best. Being able to stop and eat this elephant one bite at a time can be very, very difficult. Finding the right people and managing those people is difficult. Nurses actually come with this skill intuitively by nature of what we do. We don't think we do, but our role is about managing situations, risk, and delegating tasks. We are excellent, excellent managers. But the mental leap from when we're doing it in our own business and the technicalities of paying people and HR and industrial relations and all of that can be very challenging. Number 5 is sell. And I think this, for nurses, is the hardest. We do this dreadfully. Not necessarily because we're bad at it. I think just psychologically it is so foreign to what we do that it just doesn't sit well with our very core gut. There isn't a single skill in our native nursing world that is transferable to selling. Worse, we have a core belief that everyone in our healthcare world is entitled to the same healthcare, whether you're public or private or overseas or you're a refugee, whoever you are, you should get healthcare. If you now put yourself in a position where you own a home care agency and you can see someone who desperately needs the skills and the resources that you have, but they need to pay you for it, and if they're not going to pay you for it, then they can't have it, and they just can't afford it, that's incredibly difficult. We desperately want to give away our knowledge and our skills to people in need, but that's not business, it's charity. And selling, and most notably taking money, is a learned skill. Learn is the 6th skill, but you always need to be a lifelong learner. We're good at this. We're all over this one. This isn't a challenge for us. We're amazing at being able to identify gaps in our knowledge. In our clinical situation, we know what we know and we know what we don't know. And more to the point, the expert nurse knows that he or she is standing on the abyss of everything that they don't know. So owning the fact that we're lifelong learners is okay with us. The trick for nursing entrepreneurs is to know when to outsource. Doctors are great at outsourcing. That's kind of their core business. And so are allied health. They have a very clear scope of practice. But as nurses, we're often the ones that are there 24/7, and we're the one holding the bag at the end of the day. So we're the ones there at the end of the day to sort everything, irrespective of what bizarre and miscellaneous sorts of things crop up. But in business, we can't know everything. And we shouldn't be doing everything because we have a core knowledge that we're exploiting. And if we're running around with minutiae, then we're never going to grow our business and never going to be successful. So learning to know what we need to know and what we don't need to know is probably the challenge for us as nurses. 7 is self-reflection. Again, I think nurses are intuitively really good at this. By nature of what we do, it can be a really confronting process. When we make a mistake, then we know that that mistake impacts our client and our patient that's right in front of us. If we give them the wrong drug, then it's us that have caused harm and maybe a poor outcome. So we have spent many a year in our nursing journeys self-reflecting on what we do and what we can potentially do. So taking a minute to think, for us, not difficult. Number 8, self-reliance. Again, easy street for us. Resourcefulness is absolutely fine for us. We're professional problem solvers. So this skill is really easy for us as well. The next thing is knowledge. It's great. I've got the entrepreneurial spirit. And of those 8 qualities, you might be thinking that you've got 5 or 6 and the rest you'll learn along the way. But then there is universally the question about, there is an enormous amount out there about running a business that you don't know anything about. The actual nuts and bolts mechanics about what you need to do. And it's true, it can be a significant amount of things that you've never even had a need to think about or know about before. And they're things like cash flow and taxation. Where do every time we need to go and get a pen, there's a nice little corporate express order that someone has done for us, and we've got reams of paper and folders if we need them, and a ward clerk that knows how to get it if we do need something else. So even getting supplies when we're on our own is complicated. So there's an enormous amount of, cash flow, taxation, how to pay for supplies, about financial knowledge that we need to know. You need things like opening a bank account and bookkeeping and sourcing finance, managing the cash flow and financial reporting, and when to seek some financial help. With things like that, it's again like one of the qualities that we were talking about in the earlier slide in terms of learn. You know what you know, and you know what you don't know. The trick is not sitting for endless hours YouTubing videos on how to build your own website and, Australian bookkeeping 101. It's just a fact that you can't build that knowledge, and it would be a waste of your core knowledge in what you're going to do to be spending that time. And you have to accept that you're not going to know anything, and you need to get on the phone and say, I need a bookkeeper, I need an accountant, I need someone to tell me how I get a loan to cover these costs, and if I'm going to get a loan, how do I know how much for? All of those resources and advice is out there, and a lot of it is for free as well. The Australian government is incredibly committed to small business and startups, so there is a lot of resources out there that you can access for free. There are decisions that you need to make about bricks and mortar versus online. Are you going to be a disruptive service and be the next Uber to the home care world or the agency world? And so like Uber, you're the greatest provider of taxi services and don't own any taxis. And so you're the greatest provider of healthcare and nurses but don't actually employ anybody. Or is this an idea that you have that can be administered online and you're selling products to nurses that they need? They want scrubs that look good and not very back of house and poorly made. So you're going to make scrubs that are fabulous. It's something that can be done online and you don't need to go and get a shop front for. Marketing is something that, of course, as nurses, we have no interest in knowing in the core business when we're a career employee. And again, it's something that we shouldn't necessarily know about. We know what we know and we're trying to deliver it to clients. And if that's what we're doing, that's what we should be doing. And outsourcing those sorts of tasks is fundamental, because there are people with as much knowledge about marketing as we have about nursing. So let them do that, because it's much easier for them to do it than it is for us. Business planning and finding investment is something that's important and that you need some help with. But the important part is probably coming up with, how you're going to deliver and what you're going to deliver and why you're going to deliver it, more than any of these tasks. All of these tasks can be very easily consumed by expert knowledge, paying other people or finding resources around, and not something that should be crippling to the greater journey and really indulging that entrepreneurial spirit that lies within. So that's who we are as an entrepreneur. And if that's something unusually that you're starting at the end of this presentation to think that it is something that lies within you, there are lots of ways that people have indulged those little entrepreneurial urges that are within them. And so at my website, at that you can see on here at nursemanager.com/entrepreneurs, I've got some resources, and some of them are nuts and bolts resources that will send you to things that are worrying you, that are keeping you up like that night, like how do you write a business loan, so that you can see that it's easy and it's consumable. But more importantly, some of the other resources are some interviews that I've done with entrepreneurs, including Linda Delamotte, and how she started and how she enjoys her life as an entrepreneur and how she can't imagine going back. And mainly because she feels that she can do so much more when she has complete control over what she can do for her clients, as opposed to how she could do it as a career employee. She's incredibly motivational for those who actually do have a bit of an entrepreneurial streak within them. And so there are some other resources there as well about some fantastic case studies about nurses who have started their own businesses, which hopefully will be a help.
Nicole, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. If you're attending this session live and you have a question that you would like to put to Nicole, you just need to click on that question mark button and a little box will appear for you. You can type it into the box and hit send and it will come through. So Nicole, as I was listening to you, I was thinking, as a nurse, we do have a very large, diverse skill base. And for those who are listening, I would recommend that you go to Nurse Manager HQ, because there are some exceptional resources located on that website. Is that part of nurse coaching to assist nurses identify the skills that they've got?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are lots of nurses out there that have got a very diverse skill set and character traits that aren't necessarily well exploited, I guess, in that career employee and the garden variety career path that we have. But it's not something that we often talk about. Like, I don't know that 5 or 10 years ago I'd really given any thought to how many nurses had started businesses. It seems almost so foreign, doesn't it? But seeing that there are so many nurses out there that are really got thriving practices and thriving businesses, but pointing that out to people, I think is an important part of, that shift from I could give something more and differently to how I'm doing it now.
Certainly. Look, a very interesting presentation, Nicole, and the resources that Nicole has identified to you are available via that link. Thank you again. To everyone who's listening, I wish you an absolutely exceptional day, and I look forward to seeing you online at another webinar very soon. Goodbye.